Hopefully this is working. My name's Hunter. This is my final project for Elementary Latin 2, and I'm going to be talking about the Latin of Harry Potter. This is something that's been near to my heart for a while. Not the Latin more recently, but Harry Potter has been in my life for a long time, and we were given the opportunity to do this final project, and I'm really excited that this is what I decided to do. It wasn't originally what I was going to do, but I decided to do it because how could I not? It's my one opportunity. So, without further ado, here we go. Just to start off, a brief introduction. In the world of Harry Potter, Latin is not dead. Latin is very much a living language. Here in the Muggle world, it is still a dead language, but wizards use it all the time. It is, it makes up the backbone of so much of the vocabulary that J.K. Rowling created when she was creating the world. Dozens, if not hundreds of objects in the world of Harry Potter have their names derived from Latin. There are songs and poems as well, but everything from spells to places, names, everything has some sort of classical influence to it. J.K. Rowling has spoken at length about her vision of Latin in the wizarding world. Contrary to it being a dead language, as in the Muggle world, it is alive. And it's spoken by a number of famous characters, including Ollivander, who is the owner of that wand shop, the famous wand shop, Ollivander's in Diagon Alley. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the spells. And I'm just basically going to go through relatively rapid fire a long list of the spells, show you the words that they came from, and then the rough English translation. So we're going to start with Accio, the summoning charm. Up in the top right corner of every single one is going to be a short little description of the spell if you don't know what it does. So I'm not going to really talk about it. I'm just going to talk about the Latin. So yeah, Accio, summoning charm. The word it originates from is actually Accio Acire, which means to send for or fetch, and it comes from the first principal part of that. I send for, the literal translation is I send for or I fetch. So that's just, pretty simple. She just ripped it straight off the first principal part. And that's going to be a recurring trend as we go through these. Next is Expecto Patronum. That comes from expecto, expectare. First conjugation, normal verb, and it's a combination of that first principal part plus the genitive of patronus patroni, which is a protector or a patron. So it literally translates to I expect or I await a protector. Defindo is the next spell. It causes things to rip and tear, and it comes from the verb defindo, defendera, meaning divide or split. And its literal translation comes from the first principal part, first person singular present active indicative, and that means I divide. Again, it's a trend. The next spell is Legilimens. It's sort of the spell that allows you to see into the mind of another person, and so it would make sense that it is a portmanteau, I think is the correct word to describe it, of lego legere and mains mentis, which are the words for to read, the verb, and then the noun that means mind or reason or intellect. So the literal translation is, in essence, read mind. Like there's no true real translation, but that's how J.K. Rowling got the word as a spell, and she combined the two Latin words for it. Pretty simple. The art of resisting that spell is known as occlumency, which comes from, very similarly, occludo occludere plus mains mentis. So that's close up the mind. So it's those two, that dichotomy of legilla and occlo. That was a really cool thing that I just learned recently, just realized as I was doing this research. Next, we'll do Obliviate. It is the spell that erases the memories of a victim. And this is, I think, the first verb that we've actually covered in the class, if I'm remembering correctly. And this is obliviscor, oblivisci. and that, like, obliviate is, has ties with like oblivious. That's our normal English word. Um, so obliviate is the spell name. So it doesn't really have a literal translation, but it's just a variation of Obliviscore, probably. Like all the other ones, I forget. Next, reparo. Words of origin: reparo, reparare, to renew or repair. Pretty simple. It literally means I repair. This is just going to be roughly the same with a lot of them. Next is incendio, creates fire. Pretty simple. Incendo, incendera. See, it doesn't actually. It obviously comes from the first principal part. Incendio comes from incendo, but notice it has an I, where it is not actually a third conjugation I stem verb. This is a reflection of the fact that J.K. Rowling has said not only is Latin not a dead language, it's alive, but because of that, and it hasn't been dead for a while, it has continued to evolve, and wizards have sort of worked it into their magical narratives. Yes. Next is Expelliarmus, used to disarm another wizard. I'm going to start speeding up here because this is already much longer than I thought it was going to be. Sorry about that. So Expelliarmus comes from expello, expellera, which is a variation on the word that we have learned, which is pello, pellera, to drive out or expel. To my understanding, they mean the same, basically. But then it's a combination of that and arma, armorum, which we learned a while ago, and it means to drive out a weapon. And arma, armorum is plural. It only has plural forms, but I guess she changed it to Expelliarmus because it sounds cooler, and also it's just applying to one weapon, so that's kind of a cool thing. Nox means night. That's the spell that you say when you want to put out the light at the end of your wand. Pretty simple. Crucio is the first of the 3 unforgivable curses, also known as the Cruciatus curse. It comes from the Latin verb crucio, cruciare, cruciavi, cruciatus, which I didn't realize that the Cruciatus curse, that name, came from the 4th principal part of the verb. I found that. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense, but I just didn't realize that they had that literal of a connection between Crucio and Cruciatus. They're just 2 parts of the same verb, and it means I torment. Crucio does. Next of the unforgivables are Imperio. This just, it allows you to control someone, to command them to do whatever you want. And what do you know? It comes from the verb impero, to command or order. I command, roughly, not exactly impero, it's imperio, same thing as the other verb. Sort of active use of Latin causes it to change. Next is Avada Kedavra, and before you say anything, this doesn't actually come from Latin. It is an old Aramaic phrase that translates in English as Avada Kedavra, and it means let the thing be destroyed. But the interesting part about this is that if you want to look at it with sort of a Latin lens, you could sort of see in Avada the stem of the word avarice, and in Kedavra sort of sounds like cadaver, and those both come from Latin words. So you could say, if you want to Latinize it, if you cast Avada Kedavra, you are avarice or greedy of a cadaver. You want a body, so you're creating a corpse, basically. So I just thought that was interesting, even though it didn't explicitly come from Latin. I thought that was a cool connection.